Hey guys, welcome to Walsham Weekly. So, this week we're going to be talking about sort of scoliosis and my experience with scoliosis and how I think that you can improve your life if you have scoliosis and sort of my story. And later on, I think this is going to be quite a long podcast because I don't know how long it's going to be now, but later on I'm going to take you through some of the experiences of two other people and sort of their experiences with scoliosis and sort of how they've dealt with it. One is quite a severe case where they're going to have treatment in America, and the other one is not as severe, but it gives you sort of a wide display of the different experiences of people with scoliosis. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So first of all, I'd like to say, where was the podcast last week? So basically, last week I was just finishing exams, didn't really have time to make a podcast, but now finished exams, finished uni. It's time to grind on the podcast for the next 2 or 3 months, that's the break from uni, which is going to be pretty sick. Gonna try to do as much as possible in the next 2 or 3 months. Basically, my game plan is save up some money so I don't go bankrupt, learn even more about stocks, try and take my weightlifting and my sort of fitness to the next level, and that's sort of upgrade and revamp a few areas of my life, which is going to be quite fun. But yeah, so basically, with scoliosis, my story. Basically, back in 2011, I was just a normal kid. I am now 19. I would have been, some quick maths, smoke trees. I would have been something like 10 or 11 years old. And one day I was just walking around the house with no shirt on because, I was a teenage boy. Well, I still am a teenage boy. And then my mum was like, hey, what's that? What's wrong? And then basically she sort of looked at my back and noticed that there was sort of a bit of unevenness. And she was like, oh my God, I think you got a bit of a scoliosis. So then we went into the hospital, got it checked out. And then they were like, yep, got quite a huge scoliosis actually. It ended up being the first time we checked it was something like 40 degrees. And then I think they were like, okay, we're just going to monitor you, we'll just watch and see what happens. And then we went in for the next visit a few months later, and they were like, okay, yep, we're going to schedule you in for surgery because that's the best option. And that was the best option at that point. And there aren't too many options that people can do a lot of the time, because a lot of the time they have two options. They have either their scoliosis is very minor, it's something like 10 or 20 or even 30 degrees, and they can just use bracing. But once it gets over 40 degrees or 50 degrees, all that kind of stuff, then it really needs to just sort of be revamped, and it really needs to just sort of be taken in a more forward way. It's not something that you can just brush off and sort of look after. It's something you have to really take action for. So basically I was scheduled for surgery on the 14th of January in 2012, and I got the surgery. Basically, I'll just go over and explain a bit of what scoliosis is if you're someone that doesn't have scoliosis. So basically what I was diagnosed with was scoliosis, adolescent idiopathic scoliosis. It's quite unknown why it happens, but it is a lot more common in girls. There's a 10-to-1 ratio of female to males with scoliosis, which is strange, I think, but I think I was talking to my lecturer about it, and I think it's something to do with some other disease I can't remember right now, and something to do with bone density, I think, but I'm not really too sure. But basically, for myself, I found the surgery that I had something like, if you know your spinal anatomy, there is your lumbar spine, there's your thoracic spine, and there's your sacral spine, and then there's your, I don't know what the other spine's called. Oops, I just did anatomy and physiology. At least I passed my exam, I hope. So basically I was fused from nearly the top of the thoracic spine all the way down to the second to last one of the lumbar spine. So I was fused from T3 to L2, which I'd say is about 70% of my spine. And then so the way they fuse it is it's just a bunch of screws screwed into different places on your vertebrae, and 2 different rods. So now I have sort of no movement from there. So basically, going forward, there was 1 year of recovery where I had to. This is probably one of the hardest times for it that it really hit me, or the times that it really got to me. So this is a bit of a sad podcast, but so one of the times that it really got to me was when I had to sit through a PE school in year 9, and everyone else got to PE, who's basically physical education, if you don't know what that is, and that's basically, running around in class as a year 9. Year 9 is like 12 years old, 13 years old, that kind of age. So I missed the first 3 weeks of school because I was in recovery from my operation, and then I went into the school year and I wasn't allowed to do any sort of exercise, basically nothing. Walking was fine, but that's like the bare minimum. That was pretty much it for the first year. And then after that year, I started doing things like running. I started doing mainly just running. I did a few other sports, like sports with my friends, all that kind of stuff. And then for the next few years, I just sort of let it go. I didn't really get bullied too much. There was a few times when people would like make fun of it, but it never really like got to me. But I think that's quite an issue with people that have braces. When I say braces, I don't mean teeth braces. I mean spine sort of braces, not like the spinal fusion that I have. It's sort of like a big mold that goes around your spine to stop the progression of the curve. Also, scoliosis is basically just a curvature of the spine, if I haven't already said that. So yeah, basically I think that's quite an issue. And for those people who do have that, we have someone coming up later who does have a brace, but they have quite a unique brace, which is quite cool. But yeah, because there are a lot of treatments coming out and there is a lot of research being done towards this, because it is relatively common and it can really affect some people's lives, especially as a young teenager, which is, I think it's 85% of scoliosis cases occur in the teenage years, from something like 12 to 15 or something. That's when it's mainly noticed. It's like a huge amount that occurs in a very young teenage age. But yeah, so basically I just cruised through school, didn't really bother me too much. It was just sort of a thing that was there. And then near the end of year 13, I sort of started to realize I was always I was always a very skinny kid. I was not a big kid. And I was always the kid who people would ask like, oh, wow, do you not eat enough? All that kind of stuff. Most of the time it didn't get to me. It was sort of just like, yes, haha, I eat enough. And it never really bothered me until about year 12, year 13. So this is about a year or 2 years ago now. And then I was like, okay, what can I do about this? Because I was listening to Brian Tracy. I was getting really into this kind of stuff. And then basically I joined a gym. I joined like this sort of 24-hour chain gym. I don't recommend these kind of gyms, but I think they're a good place to start. They're very like friendly and they're just easy, super convenient. But mine, I had to walk like an hour each way to get there, and then it was quite ridiculous. I would spend an hour walking to the gym, and I'd go to the gym, and then I'd do my gym stuff, and I'd drink my protein shake there, which I would bring every day. I'd bring a protein shake just to get that bulk on, And then that really, I started off, before I started weightlifting, I weighed about 53 kgs, and then after that, now I weigh something like 64, and I'm pretty much staying at 64 right now. I'm not too focused on gaining much more weight, just because you get to a point where it's just size and it's not functionality and it's not anything like that. But yeah, and I'm still relatively lean. I'm still just, yeah. But right now my focuses are more sort of focusing on becoming more functional and just sort of fixing my wrist injuries, because that's another issue I've got to fix. And I think my wrist injuries come from always being skinny and always, being just quite a fragile human being, and then all of a sudden going into heavy weightlifting, going into all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that really, spiced it up a lot. But so yeah, back in year 13, I really started to put on weight, and I really like good weight, you know, like started to put on muscle, people started respecting me more just because of the weight, and that really helped me deal with it a lot, because went from being the skinny kid to, you know, normal sized dude, even musclier than most dudes, which was quite nice. And then I'd like to go over a few things that I think really helped my scoliosis personally. One of the main things that is a major issue is you get a lot of back pain, and a few of the ways that I like to sort of go over and like decrease my back pain is, if you do your research into back pain, you can see that a lot of people's back pain is caused from sitting, and that's because this sort of position leaves you with your hip flexors tight, so they're always sort of contracted or shortened, and that just periodically shortens them over time, especially if you're sitting for something like, you know, 8 hours a day, 4 hours a day, whatever it is. If you're sitting for hours and hours a day, then it really starts to just take an impact. And then the shortening of your hip flexors produces a weakening of the glutes, which then produces anterior pelvic tilt, which is where a lot of the pain comes from. So what I like to do is I like to use a standing desk periodically. So if you're watching the video and you're not on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, or you're watching the podcast, you can see my standing desk behind me right there. Yep. So basically what I've done is I've just got sort of my little container thing, and I've put another container on top of it. So I've just made a makeshift standing desk. I made the floor a little higher by putting some like rubbery floor pads on them. I don't even know what you call them, but yeah, you can literally use anything. You don't need to go buy an expensive standing desk. You don't, no excuses, you know. If you're getting back pain, don't be a pussy and just go and lie down, because I don't think you can get much work done lying down unless you're like working on your phone. But I find this standing desk really helps. It's hard to concentrate at the standing desk at first, but one thing that I found helped me was if you use wired headphones, because usually I'm using like Bluetooth headphones, but if you use the wired headphones, then I really sort of noticed that there's not really an issue with running away and checking your phone, because throw a pen well. There's not really an issue with sort of walking away, because you know you're wired in. But yeah, so I feel like that does really help. The standing desk does help me personally a lot with the back pain, and also if you learn how to stretch your hip flexors, which really helps a lot. And I actually do a bit of glute strengthening at the gym, which is quite helpful, just because they don't always get activated, and this, especially by dudes, they're quite a neglected muscle group, and legs in general. There was a long time where I didn't focus on legs at all, just because I was like, oh, who cares, I just want to get big, you know. Like, you just wanted a big chest, big back. But like training muscles for your, like, the thing about getting a strong back to help your scoliosis is you don't want to work on things like getting big lats and getting a big thick back and a big chest and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's cool, but it's not too functional. Like, say things like traps. You do want to get big traps, but you want to get them through things like deadlifts. I think deadlifts are actually quite good for scoliosis. Maybe that's controversial. I used to do sumo deadlifts because I thought they were sort of produce less torque on your back, and I thought it really helped. But now I've sort of moved more into thinking that, just from experience, I think personally that deadlifts are not actually that good. I mean, sumo deadlifts are not actually that good. I think deadlifts are really good, but you're not going for sets of 3s. You're going for sets of like 6 or 8 or something like that, and you're not pushing too hard. And use a weightlifting belt. I find that really helps me engage my core and keep everything strong. And when you are working your core, you do want to be working not just your abs, but you want to be working your real core. And a lot of the way that you can do that is by using a weightlifting belt. And I find that it really helps me. So yeah, that sort of leads on to one of my other tips for sort of back pain and managing scoliosis is you have to find people who, you have to sort of take control of your fitness. Because if you mope around being sad and being, oh, I'm a weak, fragile person with scoliosis and I can't do anything, what you have to realize is you just need to not be a pussy, and you just need to go out there. If you're scared of the gym and you're scared of looking ugly in the gym, wear a fucking hoodie, like, wear a long sleeve shirt, whatever. Like, just do what you have to do to get in the gym. Even if you need to start at home, just start doing normal exercise for normal people, and then as you go on, you'll learn more and more about sort of biomechanics and nutrition. That's also, nutrition is quite important. One thing that I think is incredibly important is, this doesn't seem like it would relate, but don't smoke. The reason you don't want to smoke is because my surgeon explained this to me. He explained that basically you want to stay away from smoking because due to if you know anything about the blood-brain barrier, it's really hard for anything to get through there. And the way for nutrients and blood to get to your spine is through the blood-brain barrier. And when you smoke, your blood vessels, I think they dilate when you smoke, and that makes it harder for, no, I think they dilate or vasoconstrict or something like that, and that basically smoking makes it harder for nutrients and sort of things that help repair your spine get to there. So basically the thing that happens every day is your spine goes through consistent micro trauma just from walking around, all that kind of stuff, just the constant, walking up and down and just all that kind of stuff. All the little, I forgot what they're called. I learned this early this semester, but completely forgot. But the little squishy things in between each vertebrae, basically those get injured every single day, and you need to repair those, and you can't repair those if you are constantly smoking. It's because it just completely stops blood flow, and it really just, it's a negative cycle. So yeah, plus it'll give you cancer. So yeah, and also another thing is, you have to figure out how to stop giving a shit what anyone else thinks, because the moment you get into the gym and then you start leaning in a certain way to make your scoliosis look less prominent, and you start hiding yourself away, you wear hoodies, you aren't proud of your body, you don't want to go swimming, it just limits you. And the only reason that it's limiting you is it's not limiting you because people are judging, because the majority of people couldn't give half a shit. They don't care, they don't know your name, they don't give a shit. If your friends judge you and laugh at you for it, fuck them, get new friends. Honestly, like, you think it's scary to get new friends, but you can get new friends. I do understand it's hard in high school, and it's like sometimes feels impossible to get new friends, but if you don't know how to get any new friends and you don't think you can get new friends, fine, then don't get new friends, just do something else. But don't hang out with those cunts, like, just don't. Not worth your time. So yeah, basically the way that I found that I could love myself more and sort of appreciate my body even with scoliosis is, I sort of saw it as a project. Now especially I really see it as a project, because it's a challenge. With most people, their fitness is so, oh, I have to lose weight, I want to gain muscle. Like, yeah, cool, but I want to live and be functional by the time I'm 40. That's the thing with scoliosis, and especially spinal fusions, is you don't know how it's going to progress over the next 60, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5 years. I'm 6 years post-surgery and I feel pretty damn good. There's days where I feel absolutely no back pain, which is pretty crazy to me, considering this is probably like going to be seen as a barbaric treatment in like 10 years, but maybe not even 10 years, but like the amount of research that's being done, the amount of change that's happening, because I think a spinal fusion isn't the best, it isn't, I personally don't think it's the best method, but I'm not educated, I don't have a degree, it's just from what I've seen. I think there's probably going to be better ways out there. We're just not technologically there yet, and we just don't have the knowledge yet to actually do better treatments for it. Like, maybe there's something that we can do with gene editing to stop it at birth, or maybe there is something that we can do with bracing where the brace tightens a little bit and then it tightens a little bit, like braces, like real teeth braces, that kind of thing. Or maybe there's some other sort of way. But yeah, it's a scary thing, because if I lived 100 years ago, I'd be dead. Like, they wouldn't let me live. It's like, oh, he's a fucking rodent. Like, what are we gonna do? It's like, I'd be an experiment, or I'd be like dead. I don't know. Like, you just got to be grateful. It's like, you can complain about having scoliosis, or you can be lucky that you can walk. It's like, you just got to be grateful at these points, because especially if you mope around and you're not doing anything about it, I'm directing this especially if you have scoliosis and you don't exercise and you don't take control of your fitness, there's a ton of people with scoliosis, and I think this is quite crazy. There's a ton of people with scoliosis on places like Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube. A lot of them are girls. The majority of them are girls because the boys don't really show it, and that's why I'm trying to show it, because show them exercising, I mean. So yeah, I think you really had to actually take control of your fitness, which in turn helps you love yourself more and helps you appreciate your body, because if you're not appreciating it, then it's going to depreciate, and then it's going to lose value, and it's going to lose strength, and it's going to lose integrity, and I just don't think it's that safe or that good, and I think it's just plain unreliable. So yeah, and also I think you should find, speaking of people on Instagram, people on YouTube that have scoliosis, or just other people that inspire you, you have to find people with scoliosis or with other conditions that really inspire you. Let me think of some good names. So some of the people that I'm having on today, you should follow them on Instagram. I'll leave their Instagrams in the show notes. They're great people, but they're not like scoliosis personalities. Maybe you could just chat to them about it, but someone that I think they've got a really scary condition, but they take it in their stride, and they don't, they fucking roll with it. They don't just fuck around. Is Mo Samuels. He's a great person. He's been on this podcast. With scoliosis, the thing is, there's not that many that are that big. There's a few that have like a minor scoliosis, but you've got to be wary. Like, when you see the word scoliosis, it's this big word, but it's divided into... Yes? But it's divided into 18 different subcategories of someone who has a 10-degree curve, who it's just a thing that they have. It's like, I have a cold. Maybe it's not that small, but it's not going to affect them that much. But what about for someone who has a 50-degree curve and they can't get surgery, or someone who has a 40-degree curve and they're they're teetering on getting surgery, not getting surgery, and things like, say you're doing sumo deadlifts for someone, or just deadlifts for someone. Are you done yet? Yes. Okay, and I'm back. Yeah, just my mum started vacuuming, and had to wait for that to finish because... Really? Okay, sorry. So yeah, basically my mum just started vacuuming, and I'm back. So yeah, there's a whole diverse group of people with scoliosis, because you can't apply a lot of things that I say to someone who has a 10-degree scoliosis. You can't apply it to someone who has a 50-degree scoliosis and they're not getting surgery. Like, there's a whole range of people who have done their research of scoliosis and have sort of looked into this. And I'm like, the thing with surgery is you have to realize once you've done it, you can't go back. And that's the thing that I want to know is, in 50 years, if I have enough money, is the surgery going to be reversible? Is that a thing that's going to be able to happen? Is that possible? Like, that's the kind of things that I want to know. So yeah, I'm probably going to go on to the interviews now. So thank you guys very much for listening, and I'm going to let you listen to the first interview now. The first interview will be with Taylor. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this interview.